Hello and welcome to today's review of the Transformers 2007 movie Real Gear Robots Speed Dial 800. And generally, just while start off, this phone mode is absolutely brilliant. Now, growing up, I remember flip phones being a thing and stuff. They're kind of making a comeback, bit of a different form with touchscreens and all that. Samsung have the Galaxy Flip, whatever it's called, and it's truly an interesting idea. But this was kind of where it was at back in 2007. I mean, how flip phones kind of existed a little bit beyond that point as well, for a good few years. And yeah, generally I really like this. The detailing all throughout this mode, even with the stickered section, this is in really good condition on the back as well. But yeah, it's all brilliant stuff. Sadly, no pushable buttons, unlike some of the other Real Gear figures. The games controller has some pushable and movable things. The handheld gaming device also has some pushable buttons. The camera has a function, kind of. The watches are a bit boring, and the camcorder doesn't do an awful lot. But this is just brilliant to look at, and fiddling with it, it's brilliant. You've even got the detailing on the back for the camera, which is really cool. Because even though the cameras on these old flip phones weren't any good, it was still a camera that you can get some photos of. And I'm sure you can make it work, So generally, I think highly of this mode. Lovely stuff. So we're going to be moving straight onto our size comparison. So for our size comparison for speed dial, long view, high score, game controller thing, portable game device, Ralph, Steve. Generally, they all look really good together, I'm never not going to be happy with how all of this presents itself, and generally, just across the board, the whole line is a bloody hit. I quite enjoy all of them in their little alt modes. The robot modes, here and there. But I definitely think it's truly a really good engineering feat to have gotten all of these to work how we do. And Speed Dial is a truly wonderful fellow. Is he as good as Longview? Yes, he is. All right. Even the transformation on this one is really good. And so we're just going to move straight into it. So for the robot mode on speed dial, here we have this beautiful little fella. Now the transformation process to get here is pretty cool. I quite enjoy it, but the toes are a bit of a pain to get out. Let's put it back here so I could just show you this. Now as you can see, there's no real section to grab hold of and pull from, so you really have to just kind of dig a nail in there. See, I have really short nails, so this is exceptionally harder, but you just kind of wedge it in there, pull the toe out. It's kind of cool, Alternatively, if you wanted to say these were heel spurs, you could have the legs like this, but he doesn't seem to stand up as well. Okay, there you go, problem solved. But I think for the sake of the fact that this is all hollow and the knees bend this way, I'm confident the legs are supposed to be this way. The instruction manual says so too, but do what you want. So for the general aesthetic of this anyway, it's brilliant. I always kind of thought this was a cool look for him, having the mouth covered up, because it is a bit uncanny that he's got this little nose and a mouth, oddly human, but whatever. It's just cool. I've kind of started to quite like this though. They're generally really good. I like this robot mode quite a bit. Just as much as long views, if I'm being honest. And with the phone mode being so good, this is sure to get high points on aesthetics. And from here, we're going straight into articulation. So for the articulation on speed down, it's quite good for a figure of this size and this kind of price point for the time period. So we have shoulders that go 90 on the ball joint all the way around. You have an elbow that pulls more than 90, which is very good. You have a bit of a wrist swivel upwards. It's more a hinge, sorry, not a swivel, which is cool, always welcome. Can't go any other direction. Now, the elbows are on a ball joint, so they can go all the way around, which kind of acts in place of the bicep swivel that a normal figure would have. The head, due to the fact it's kind of, this eye is the camera piece on the back of the phone, it is fixed to this whole back assembly, so it does impede the movement a little bit. But I mean, you can get a little bit of a turn before it looks a bit silly. It's not terrible, you know. I don't have much to add about it. I do kind of like to think this is a cape when trying to pose this little guy. You get him looking a bit dynamic, kind of leaping through the sky or whatever. So that kind of covers the top half of the figure. For the legs, universal joint pinned at the hip. Legs kick all the way up. Can't really go backwards. Now, if we move this, which looks silly, you do get really far back, but I don't like the count hit because it does really throw off the general look of the figure by moving this, you know, and he's not going to hold a pose while this whole back assembly is floating outwards. But yeah, generally it does kick forward quite far, which is really nice. And due to the fact that it's attached just below the hip, the leg is, we do get a maximum thigh swivel. There you go, spins without any problems. Knees go kind of really deep maximum bend, which is brilliant. Toes, if you want to count this as toe articulation, you can. I won't knock you for it. Also, these are attached by these little mushrooms, so they just peg back on. It's like the modern fossilizer system or whatever. And that really wraps it up. Like Longview, he doesn't have a waist or anything, but I'm cool with it for a figure that transforms how this transforms. You know, was there much room for a waist? Maybe. You know, you could argue that you could have had one here, but I'm okay with it, given price point and all the detailing that's already on the figure, you know. And you do also have downwards movement at the shoulders. Now, it's for transformation and looks a bit silly like this, but it's an option. From here, the size comparison. So for the robot mode size comparison, here we have 07 Voyager Ironhide, 07 Deluxe Swindle, 07 Legends Class Starscream, Ralph, Steve. Generally across the board, looks cool with all of these. You know, same thing with Longview, where I've kind of covered all of the different size classes minus Lido for the 07 toy line. There's also not another Scout class here, but I don't have any of those Scout classes that weren't Real Gears because they were all repaints of old Cybertron toys and Energon and things like that. So they're not unique mods or whatever. But 07's true Scout class was things like Longview and Speed Dial here. So yeah, that's kind of what we're working with. Minifig Scout, I'm perfectly cool with it. You know, I like to imagine that these Real Gear robots would be really small in comparison to everything else anyway, like in universe. Generally, good stuff. Moving on from here, my final thoughts. So for my final thoughts on Speed Dial, I'm quite happy with how this one's turned out. You know, both modes are brilliant. I love all the detailing and stuff across the board. I talked about it during the robot mode overview. It's truly wonderful stuff, you know, what they were able to do at this budget, or, you know, whatever the budget was for the Real Gear robots. It's basically a Scout class, and for £7 you can't do much better. Yeah, it's just truly brilliant. Transformation's really clever, despite the feet. You know, the feet aren't no crime against humanity or anything like that, but I wish it was a little bit easier to get them out. So generally, for the ranking and stuff on this, aesthetics are a 5 out of 5. I love both modes, even if having this whole back assembly is a bit clunky for the robot. When you kind of look at it and think, oh my god, it's a cape, you know, I think you can get some real cool posing done with him, leaping through the sky, kind of doing whatever. I definitely have to do a photo shoot of this for the Instagram page. I need to actually get back on the photography in general. But aesthetics, I'm giving him a 5 across the board. Transformation in this guy is a 5. I really wanted to really kind of compare it to Longview and things like that, but This does a fair bit differently, and it's still really smart in what it does. Now, I don't think so highly of all of the Real Gear robots. Some of them are really... I have lesser opinions on some of them. I'm just kind of getting long view and speed dial here out of the way first, because they probably are my favourite of the bunch. I think I'll do my third place is the next review. But yeah, generally, transformation in this is really good. Smart, love the engineering. Articulation on this guy now. I was jumping back and forth between a 4 or a 5. And eventually, after just kind of comparing this to Longview, I was actually, despite the fact it's doing a couple of things differently, it's definitely a 5 still for the size class and, you know, everything across the board. The fact this articulates how it does is perfectly fine. You know, I'm generally really happy with it and what I've been able to kind of fiddle with him and do. So I'll give him a 5 for that. And then finally, value for money on this guy. You know, I think there's more playability in a toy phone than there would be a pair of binoculars, you know, for a child at least. I don't know, you pretend to call someone if you wanted. Generally, though, value for money on this guy. For a £7 figure, truly wonderful stuff. 5 out of 5. You don't get too much better than this, you know. Maybe long view, but this probably has more play functions, which is brilliant. So overall, that wraps everything up. Generally, 5 out of 5s, all across the board. Truly wonderful stuff. He's the third figure on the channel to achieve that goal of having 5 out of 5s. First, we had Henkei Mirage, then Longview, now this guy. But I assure you, the next figure will not be 5s across the board. This has been AnimatedCHUG. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.